2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, yes I am here. This is Jewish Talk coming to you live from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC. Also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. This program, yes, this program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there, my name is... I don't even bother having this. If you don't know what my name is, forget about it. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening or watching. So today I'd like to address a very interesting mitzvah, a very interesting, what we call a commandment that is currently in force in the land of Israel in the year 21 through the year 2022. It's called the year of Shemitah. And let me explain to you what the idea behind this particular subject is. It's a fascinating, a very extraordinary mitzvah. Shemitah translates the Sabbatical Year. Basically, it's designed to allow the land in Israel, that means if you owned a field, acres of all kinds of, big fields, during this year, the land is left to rest and regenerate. So, basically, 6 years the land is worked, but on the 7th year, it remains at rest and lies fallow. And during that time, the farmer, the owner, the landlord, owner, no planting, no pruning, no agricultural work whatsoever in the 7th year in the Holy Land. And what happens to all the stuff that grows? It becomes ownerless. It's there for the taking for all. Of course, the owner can take some of the food for himself and his family, but so can his workers, his friends, his neighbors, anyone. Even the animals around can come in there and eat from the field. The landowner, in his own land, would have no more right than the stranger. We want to welcome everyone listening on WHPC and everybody watching us on Facebook, both at the WHPC Facebook and Linda Zellickson, good Woch, and to Eitan Kilshevsky. So for these 6 years, you own property, but then comes the 7th year, you enjoy no special claims. During this year, the gates surrounding the farms may not be locked, and anyone may come into the field or the garden and help himself or herself to the produce. One may gather into one's home enough food for one's family. One may not do business with the Shemitah, with the food, the fruits, whatever it is that's growing during this sabbatical year. Now, there's another fascinating mitzvah that is associated with this sabbatical year. It's called the cancellation of debts. Every 7 years, all debts were canceled. Why? To allow people to begin again with a blank slate. This mitzvah applies not only in Israel, but everywhere. Now, let me make it very clear. The remission of debts applies only to a loan, not to store credit, paying a wage, returning an investment with the profits. Some say it does not apply even to banks and groups. Now, but what's the underlying principles, and why would I be discussing this today with everybody? Because this is one of many examples of Judaism's capitalism with a conscience. I repeat it again for those who've just fallen on the floor. Capitalism with a conscience doctrine. There are many other legislated obligations to the poor. Not optional extras, not even pious recommendations, but clear mandatory contributions to those who are less fortunate. The 10% tithes, as well as the obligation to leave to the poor the unharvested corners called peah of one's field, the gleanings, and the forgotten sheaves are all part of a system of compassionate capitalism. Judaism, therefore, presents an economic system which boasts the best of both worlds. The advantages of an unfettered free market, allowing a personal expression and success relative to hard work, without the drawbacks of corporate greed. Another group of my listeners have just fallen on the floor. If the land belongs to God, then we have no exclusive ownership over it. God bestows his blessings upon us, but clearly the deal is that we must share. The sabbatical year is one of many checks and balances that keep our capitalism kosher and kind. The laws of sabbatical year represent a few key principles in Judaism, my friends. First, our assets do not belong to us in any absolute way. Our assets are a gift from the Creator. Once in 7 years, he relinquishes our ownership. Jewish law rests on this major principle that only God owns everything, or owns anything. What we possess, we do not own, but merely hold in trust. That is why the concept of tzedek or tzedakah is not translatable into English, because it means the word tzedakah or tzedek means both justice and charity. In English, justice and charity are radically different. We do justice because we must. We give charity because we may. If I give you $10,000 because I owe it to you, that is justice. If I give you the same amount because I owe you nothing, but I think you need it, that is charity. An act may be one or the other, but not both. But hello, in Judaism, by contrast, what we possess is not ours. It belongs to God. He has merely placed it into our safekeeping. We are looking after it on behalf of God. One of the conditions of that trust is that if we have more than we need, then of course that is a trust that God is giving to us to be able to share with others. The second idea of this sabbatical year, the earth is not just an object that we can abuse. We must respect it and its needs for a year of rest. Third, the gap between the rich and the poor is minimized during this year of sabbatical, when all equal in terms of agricultural assets. And in the ancient worlds, they was the most important assets that we had, our fields and our gardens. The fourth reason, the farmer needed to be afforded the chance to set aside economic competition in order to do what? To spend a year in study and spiritual growth. So it really was a year of spirituality for the farmer. Now, the observance of the sabbatical year was a tremendous expression of faith, because the Torah itself recognizes a problem, a question that we may ask. Understand that for the whole 7th year, you weren't working on your field. So how are you going to live? What's going to happen? You're not going to sow. You're not going to do anything like that. So what's going to be? If you will say, the Torah says, what will you eat in the 7th year? Take it easy, the Torah says. I will ordain, God says, that in the 6th year, it will yield enough for sufficient for the 3-year period. The 6th year, the 7th year when it lies fallow, and enough into the 8th year before the next year's crop starts to begin. In other words, God promises that he will bless the produce of the 6th year with such bounty that it would sustain the owner for year 6, year 7, and year 8, until the new harvest of the year can be consumed and sold. We have a fascinating insight by the 19th century rabbi of Pressburg, Rabbi Hashem Sofa, known as the Hashem Sofa, and he explains that this verse, this promise, demonstrates the divine origin of the Torah. Why? Because which sane human being would make a prediction that may easily turn out false and demonstrate that he lied? How can a human being, make a promise about the produce of every 6th year in Israel that is going to last for so many years? You've got to be mad to make such a promise. Unless, my friends, you are well connected with the forces of nature because you created them. So this is one of the proofs, says this great rabbi, that the Torah is from Hashem, and clearly it has been proven over the years that when we rest for the 7th year, it ends up being that the 6th year's produce is enough for the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. Never failed once. This is all a further testament on the authenticity and the holiness and the eternity of Torah itself. Now, as I pointed out, the reason why I'm discussing this morning, and welcome to Michael Weingart, listening from Germany. This year, 5782, or the year 2022, is a sabbatical year. Most of us are not farmers, unless you live in Vermont or someplace like that, when you have at least 1,000 acres of wheat. But most of us are not farmers, certainly, and not in Israel. Yet the theme of the sabbatical year applies to us here in the United States. In what way is this Rabbi Hakan a Chinik? What is this sabbatical year, and this has got to do with me over here in Long Island? Well, listen up, dear friends. The Torah defines this year as when you shall let go. That's the term used. So think about this in the following manner. This is the year of letting go, of releasing our intense grip and hold on our belongings, on our earth, and on our money, and also on that which we own inside of our hearts. What am I talking about? This is a year with unique opportunity to let go of things like anger, toxic thoughts, and hold others always in debt to us. You know what I'm talking about? We let go of their debts to us. I feel like you owe me so much, so many favors, so many apologies. So many compliments you owe me, so many gifts, so many I am sorries, so many things you need to be remorseful for. Well, this year of releasing, this is the year, Torah says, is sabbatical year. Let go, let it go already. I have a person who listens to my program who gets very upset if I raise my voice. And I got some snide remarks on Facebook because of this. So my suggestion is, if I raise my voice, you lower the volume. It's fascinating. There's a button and you lower it down. But this year, what we learned from the sabbatical year is let go. To forgive the debt, so to speak. For real. That's as far as the Shemitah of debt. There's also the sabbatical of the fields, the fruits and the grain in our emotional life as well. We can also let go of our needs to be so focused on ourselves, fearing that we will be taken advantage of. We can allow others into our lives, our hearts, our private domains. You can come into my field and share my bounty, my fruits and produce. I can allow my wife or my husband into my life. Sure, vulnerability can be scary. For what happens if I allow you to come in and you throw me out of my field? It is too very scary. So many of us lock up our emotional gates. But this year, let it go, let it go. We can realize that our confidence and sense of self comes from God. So we need not to be afraid to open up our inner hearts to others, to our spouses, loved ones, friends, and even strangers. We can just give love without inhibition, without fear, without the need to protect ourselves so much. And when we share and give, our lives become infinitely enriched. And I want to tell you a story that reflects this. An amazing story, my friends. I shared it in shul yesterday. Again, when we share and give, our own lives become infinitely enriched. Here's the story, my friends. Sit back, take out that pipe, and contemplate the following. A businessman whose affairs had gone downhill came to see his Rebbe, Rabbi Avrom Yeshua Heschel of Apta. His daughter was of a marriageable age, he explained, and he could not see how he would come up with the dowry needed to marry her off. So the Rebbe asked him, how much money does he have? He says, my pockets are practically empty. I only have one coin left. So the Rebbe says to him and advised him, go home and accept the first business proposition which presents itself to you. Through it, you will obtain the means to marry off your daughter. So the man heads home, wondering how he would possibly procure such a sum with only a single coin to invest. On his way, he stops at the inn where he happened to observe a group of diamond merchants discussing business. One turned to him and said, why are you looking at us? Would you like to buy a diamond? Remembering that the Rebbe told him to accept the first business proposal he received, he said yes. When the merchant asked him how much the man was able to spend, he proffered his single coin, which is what all he had. The diamond merchant began to laugh. With one coin? He thinks he's going to buy a diamond? The man was a real cynic and a little drunk too. He decided to mock this guy. You know what? He says, I do have something I can sell for you for that amount. I can sell you my olam haba, which translates my place in the world to come, for a ruble. I do not even believe in the world to come, and I'm happy to give it to you away for a ruble, as it is worthless anyway. A contract was written up, and all the assembled merchants had a good laugh. The poor guy was ashamed, but what could he do? When the diamond merchant arrived home, he told his wife of this humorous story. His wife was less than pleased. Why would I remain married to someone without a place in the world to come? She fumed. Get out of my house, she demanded. If you have no world to come, divorce me, she says. If you wish to remain married, go right back to that man and reclaim your world to come, your olam haba. So he went back to the inn where he found the destitute guy. I'll give you back your coin if you give me back the contract, he offered. Let's arrange a refund. The chassid, the poor guy there, refused. Okay, I'll give you more than what you paid. Just give me back my portion in the world to come. Still the chassid, the guy, refused. So how much do you want? He says. I want 5,000 rubles. This was the amount he needed for his daughter's wedding. No way, Jose. But when he returned home, his wife said, you callous man, do not come home without getting back your reward in the world to come. The merchant came back and tried bargaining, but to no avail. The chassid stuck to his guns. The sum was delivered and the contract annulled, restoring the merchant's share in the world to come. So the guy goes home now with joy, with all the money he needs to marry off his daughter and to rebuild his family and his income. A while later, the merchant who engaged in this deal came to see the Rebbe of Apta, and he lamented to the Rebbe. He said, is this fair? I sold my world to come for 1 ruble, and then I had to buy it back for 5,000. The Rebbe responded, absolutely. You see, when you sold it, your world to come was truly only worth 1 coin. But when you bought it back, through giving the other man the money he needed to marry off his daughter, your world to come absolutely became worth 5,000 coins, if not much more than that. See, my friends, that's the power. When we give and make others put people up, we ourselves gain so much. And that's really a broader understanding of the sabbatical year, where we give back, where everybody kind of equals out a little bit. And there's importance. Yes, there's 6 years to have one's own abilities and work hard and make it. But at the end of the day, there has to be, as we use the word, a capitalism with a consciousness, with appreciation of others as well. Because at the end of the day, if we have more than we need, that indicates God is trusting us with that extra to be able to help others. And when we help others, we in turn become elevated. A charity collector once visited a wealthy man in the hopes of receiving a donation. The wealthy fellow politely explained how he would love to give, but he can't because he already gave his share of charity for the year. You know what I'm talking about, dear friends, right? As evidence, he pointed to a pile of receipts on his desk. The collector looked around the room, noticing his beautiful surroundings in the wealthy man's home. Respectfully, he asked his host whether he could share a Torah insight. The wealthy man said, "Of course you can share some meaningful thought." He says, "During the time of our holy temple in Jerusalem," began this guy who'd come to collect from the rich man, "there was a Jewish livestock owner was obligated to tithe his flock. How was this done? He would pen the cattle in an enclosure and open up the door. As each animal exited the enclosure, he would count 1, 2, 3. When he counted the 10th, he would mark the animal with red dye. That animal was then put aside to be brought to Jerusalem." The collector, who's now talking, a question is asked regarding this prescribed process. Why make the rancher endure this whole process of penning the animals and then driving them out into the exit? Why not just take 10% off the top, add a few extra to ensure that no less than the required 10% was tithed, and avoid the seemingly time-consuming and senseless exercise? So the collector answered, the answer is that a very profound message is being conveyed to the rancher by virtue of this process. As each animal goes out of the door, it is as if the Almighty is telling the person, 1 is for you, 2 is for you, 3 is for you. After giving the owner 9, the Almighty then asks for only 1. After getting to keep 9, the rancher is content and realizes how all of his wealth comes from God, and that though he is giving, he's getting much more. The point hit home. The wealthy man recognized his many blessings and happily gave a generous donation. Fascinating, beautiful thought. Thank you, Denise Ellickson. Thank you for your words, and thank you, everybody, joining us here today. So in our conversations and our discussions and opportunities that we have, I wanted to share with you the good news that this past Wednesday night we had our annual Good Deed Awards for Long Island teenagers, where young men and women of all walks of life, of all affiliations, are chosen each year by judges for their good deeds. It's called Good Deed Awards for Long Island teenagers. And each year, these nominees receive recognition and rewards and plaques and a little scholarship as well to recognize how good and how appreciative their good deeds are recognized by society in general. So on Wednesday evening, a group of wonderful VIPs, government leaders, business leaders, friends came and helped 24 young men and women of all public schools this year to be recognized for their good deeds. The special guest was Dwight Gooden, of the renowned, famous from the Mets and the Yankees, and he spoke to us and he shared with us the importance of making people smile, and it was really a very uplifting experience. And I want to say thank you to Malka Kipnis, to Karen Green, and to Debbie Sherman for all the help in making this program so successful. I was thinking of the importance. A person can be very learned. A person may come from a big background, a yichus, as we say in Yiddish, or in Hebrew. A person may be, from a high-class family, important lineage. There's so many things that that we often think of ourselves in terms of how much we learn and how much background we come from. Yet the Mishnah this week that we studied tells us there are many things in life, and what is important is not just the learning that we have or the background we come from, but it's having a good name. Having a good name. Now that in no way undermines the importance of studying, or the importance of appreciating one's background. But one can be very learned, and one can be very I want to say hello to Patty Fuchs. We haven't seen you and heard from you a long time, Patty. Welcome back. One can get carried away with one's learning or feel really proud of one's background. I come from here, I went there, and I did this, and I come from that background, and I went from this town and this shtetl. At the end of the day, if a person has a good name, then all of his or her learning is meaningful. What does it mean to have a good name? It means that the person is an example that with all their background and with all their learning, with all their yichus, they share it with others as well. That's what a good name is. How does a person earn a good name? When the person shares, whether it's their wisdom or their resources, and appreciates that they, as we said earlier on, if a person has more than they need, that's the best recognition, an indication that Hashem trusts that person to be able to share whatever it may be with others around. That's the definition of a good name. A good name is reflected in if a person is more than happy and is willing to share and uplift people's lives around them. And I would like to say a thank you to all those VIPs and people who came, because they all have a good name, because there was no reason they were not the parents of these children, not the grandparents of these children. These were just business leaders, members of government in all levels for both Republicans and Democrats. And I made a mention of that. The police commissioner was there. Didn't matter. It wasn't a political evening. It was an evening where these young men and women knew that at Chabad of Mineola, there were a group of men and women who have a good name because they were sharing their time, their evening time, to make other young men and women appreciate their leadership role they have in this world. And Richie Kessel, the chairman of IDA, made a point that Tom Galata, a blessed memory, the former county executive who would come every single year, made a point of saying, when you look in the newspapers, all we hear is about the negativity, and certainly what we saw recently, an 18-year-old went up in Buffalo, and other young people go out there and destroy the world. And here we have young men and women who are building the world. It's easy to destroy. It's not so easy to build. And I want to say thank you to all those leaders who have that good name, who have taken their position in life, their political office or their business acumen, whatever it may be, and shared their time, their resources, that young men and women would know that we care for them and appreciate what they were doing. And then what impressed me, dear friends, is that, the last 2 years was very difficult for young men and women, for all of us. So in schools, to be able to do all kinds of good deeds became very inhibited because of the COVID limitations. And yet, young men and women found ways, virtually in so many different ways, to keep good deeds going. That is very impressive. They inspired us. And I hope that today we're all inspired to remember this sabbatical year, to let go of all the things that we think people owe us, etc., emotionally, whatever. And may we all be blessed with the ultimate peace, the ultimate sabbatical year with the coming of the redemption. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you a wonderful, safe week.